In 1513, a man sitting in exile, stripped of his power, tortured, and banned from politics, wrote a book that would terrify governments for the next 500 years. His name was Niccolò Machiavelli. The book was The Prince. And one of the most dangerous ideas inside it was this: never explain yourself. Ever. Not to your enemies. Not to your friends. Not to the crowd demanding answers. The moment you explain, you hand people the tools to judge you, manipulate you, and control you. Kings knew this. Generals knew this. The most powerful leaders in history practiced this instinctively. Yet today, in the age of social media apologies and oversharing, almost everyone has forgotten it. Today I'm breaking down 7 Machiavellian reasons why explaining yourself is the fastest way to lose power. This isn't theory. This is the operating system of every powerful person who ever lived. Let's begin. Reason 1. Explanations invite judgment. The moment you explain a decision, you turn a closed case into an open trial. You give people evidence to pick apart, motives to question, and logic to attack. When Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon River with his army in 49 BC, an act of war against the Roman Senate, he didn't write a letter explaining why. He didn't list his reasons. He didn't justify himself. He said 4 words: "The die is cast." And he marched forward. Imagine if Caesar had explained, "I crossed because the Senate was unfair, because Pompey threatened me, because I had no choice." Every single reason would have been debated, challenged, and torn apart. Instead, silence, action, finality. Machiavelli understood, a decision explained is a decision weakened. When you say, "Here's why I did it," you're really saying, "Please approve of what I did." And the moment you seek approval, you've already surrendered your authority. Power doesn't explain. Power moves. Reason 2. Explaining reveals your insecurities. When you over-explain, you expose exactly what you're afraid of. Every justification is a confession. Every defense is a map to your weakness. If someone accuses you of being selfish and you respond with a 10-minute explanation of all the selfless things you've done, you've just revealed that being seen as selfish is your deepest fear. Now they own you. They know which button to press every single time. Queen Elizabeth I was a master of this. When her advisors pressured her to marry, telling her England needed a king, she didn't explain her reasons for staying single. She didn't defend herself. She simply said, "I am already married to England." Conversation over. No cracks to exploit. No fears exposed. No leverage given. The rule: every word of explanation you offer is a piece of ammunition you hand to someone else. The less you explain, the less they can use against you. Silence is armor. Justification is an open wound. Reason 3. Explaining transfers power to the listener. Think about this carefully. When you explain yourself to someone, what are you really doing? You're placing them in the role of judge, and yourself in the role of defendant. You're saying, "Here is my case. Please decide if I'm right." That is a massive power transfer. And most people do it unconsciously, with their boss, their partner, their friends, even strangers on the internet. Machiavelli wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." Fear doesn't explain itself. Love does. The person explaining is always the person with less power in the dynamic. Watch any courtroom. The defendant explains. The judge stays silent and decides. In every interaction where you find yourself justifying your choices, ask yourself, who is the defendant and who is the judge in this conversation? If you're explaining, you already know the answer. Reason 4. Silence creates authority that words never can. When Steve Jobs returned to Apple in 1997, the company was 90 days from bankruptcy. The board, the press, and the employees all demanded answers. What's the plan? What products are coming? What's the strategy? Jobs said almost nothing. He canceled 70% of Apple's products, without explanation. He killed projects teams had worked on for years, without justification. People were furious. People were confused. Then the iMac launched. Then the iPod. Then the iPhone. The silence was the strategy. He didn't need to explain because the results spoke louder than any press conference ever could. Machiavelli called this the economy of words. The less you say, the more weight each word carries. A leader who explains every decision becomes background noise. A leader who speaks rarely becomes an event. Every sentence hits harder because it's rare. Silence isn't empty. Silence is full of answers that you're choosing not to give, and that choice is power. Reason 5. Over-explaining kills mystery, and mystery is magnetic. Leonardo da Vinci never explained the Mona Lisa's smile. 500 years later, the world is still obsessed. If he had said, "She's smiling because she just received good news," The painting would be in a storage room, not the Louvre. Mystery creates obsession. Explanation creates closure. And closure kills interest. This applies directly to your life. The person who explains every thought, every feeling, every motive, becomes predictable. Predictable means boring. Boring means powerless. The person who acts without announcing, who decides without justifying, who moves without narrating, becomes fascinating. People watch them. People study them. People follow them. Not because they understand them, but precisely because they don't. Machiavelli knew, you are more powerful when people are trying to figure you out than when they already have. Reason 6. Public explanations and apologies become permanent weapons. Every public apology in the age of social media becomes a searchable, screenshotable, permanent confession. It never dies. It gets bookmarked, archived, and weaponized years later. When a celebrity apologizes for an old tweet, the apology itself becomes a bigger headline than the original offense. The explanation revives a scandal that was already dying. The justification gives critics fresh material. The defense becomes the new attack surface. Machiavelli warned, men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, because it belongs to everybody to see you, to few to come in touch with you. In modern terms, perception is everything. When you explain publicly, you shape perception for your enemies, not for yourself. They will clip the parts they want. They will twist the context. They will use your own words as the rope. The powerful understand, sometimes the best response to an accusation is no response at all. Let it die in silence. Because the moment you breathe life into it with an explanation, it lives forever. Reason 7. Your actions are the only explanation you ever need. Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor, Stoic philosopher, one of the most powerful men in human history, wrote in Meditations, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. He didn't say explain what a good man is. He didn't say justify your goodness. He said be one. Let the action be the answer. When people doubt your loyalty, don't explain. Show up when it matters. When people question your work ethic, don't justify. Outwork everyone in the room. When people challenge your decisions, don't defend. Let the results silence them. Machiavelli's entire philosophy rests on one brutal truth. The world doesn't care about your reasons. It cares about your results. History doesn't remember the explanations. It remembers the outcomes. Napoleon didn't explain Austerlitz. He won it. Alexander didn't justify conquering Persia. He did it. Cleopatra didn't defend her alliances. She built an empire with them. The people who spend their lives explaining are the people who never have results strong enough to speak for themselves. And the people who never explain, they're too busy winning to care what anyone thinks. This is the final Machiavellian truth. You will never be powerful enough to satisfy every critic. You will never explain well enough to silence every doubter. So stop trying. Close your mouth. Open your hands. Do the work. Let the results echo louder than any explanation you could ever give. As Machiavelli wrote, everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. Stop explaining what you are. Start showing it. The world will adjust. If this video made you realize how much power you've been giving away through unnecessary explanations, hit that like button. Subscribe for content that doesn't just motivate you, it makes you dangerous. Share this with someone who over-explains everything. They need this more than anyone. See you in the next one.